That's me, y'all. I'm dead after reading this book. Dead. So as you can see, we're here to talk about A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. It's so good. It's so good. Okay. It's this beautiful thing right here. Kingdom of Flesh and Fire by Jennifer Armentrout. Look at all the pages. And the cover is gorgeous. It is the sequel to From Blood and Ash by Jennifer Armentrout, which is also they thick. These books. Y'all. I finished this yesterday, and I still can't get these two out of my head. Cass and Poppy are just like stuck in there. It's so good. It's so good. So I gave it a 5-star on Goodreads. So my niece and I were talking about it because she finished it before I did. And she was like, you know, it's a little slower than the first one. And it is. But I think the difference is in the first one, you had the world building, right? And you had laying down, you know, the storyline, but you don't really get to know, you're just starting to get to know Hawk and Poppy in the first book, right? And it cuts off with her realizing he's not Hawk at all. So this one picks up exactly where the first one left off. But I feel like the slowness is because Jennifer is building the relationship, because you're actually getting to know the two of them and they're getting to know each other, because as it turned out, Poppy didn't even know her real name. So, you know, this is the beginning of the book, and the way the story develops gives you time to get to know Cass and Poppy and learn why Cass did what he did. Does that make it okay? No. And that's kind of addressed in the book, but I loved it. I thought it was great. I can't wait for number 3. It does leave off on a cliffhanger. So, you know, if you don't like cliffhangers, that face is just like, I don't know what to tell you, because the first book left off on a cliffhanger, but we didn't have to wait that long. And we're not going to have to wait a year for the 3rd book. Jen's already said that. We don't have to wait a year for the 3rd book. But I mean, you know, some people like to read finished series because they don't want to wait. But it doesn't bother me, because I will legit just go back. I will just, when the 3rd one comes out, I'll be like, all right, you guys, let's revisit each other before the 3rd one comes out. It don't bother me a bit. I'll go back and reread. So this video is obviously for you guys, but it's also for me, because Jay Landers is talking about this book this month. And so I will need to go back and refresh my memory about what all happened and my favorite quotes and all that. So this is your warning. Spoilers. Spoilers. This is if you haven't read the book, if you haven't read it, turn back now, because I'm just going to go and tell you, I cannot do justice to this. I give you a synopsis as a memory refresher for those of you who, you know, are in book talks, book groups, whatever, and you just kind of need to refresh your memory because you're like me and read books nonstop. But I will never be able to even come close to doing this story justice. So read the book. It is available on Amazon. I am one of those weirdos, so I read it on the Kindle and then I buy the print version because I want to have the print version. I don't know if you can see, there's a this size hole back there, bookshelf. So, okay, so this is nitty gritty story time. Spoilers. Spoilers. All right, let's get to it, guys. So, A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire picks up where, and I'm sorry that my board is kind of, it was really hard to put those stickers up there. So it's a little wonky, but, you know, c'est la vie. So this one picks up exactly where the first one left off, which is they're in the dining hall in New Haven in the Keep. And Cass has told everybody that they're going to go get married. And Poppy's just like, what is wrong with you? You know, like you kidnapped me. You lied to me. You took everything and everyone from me. Why on earth would I ever want to marry you? Is what she's thinking. She don't say, well, she does kind of say that. She says that in the first book. Poppy's not diplomatic. So, Cass is telling everybody, we're going to get married. She's like, no, hell no, we're not. Excuse my French, y'all. Sorry. And this guy, Landau, he is questioning this decision. And he goes from questioning Cass's decision to down and out being nasty towards Poppy and saying nasty things about Poppy. And literally in the blink of an eye, Poppy says the wind blew her hair and Landau's was missing a heart. Cass was standing there holding his heart and threw it on the floor. So Cass is not about to have any of it. So Poppy gets up and Cass is like, look, if you want to fight me in private all you want to, but do not fight me in front of this person that's fixing to come in. And the person that comes in is this guy named Alistair. Alistair, it's A-L-I-S-T-I-R or A-L-A-S-T-I-R. Anyway, Alistair comes in and Poppy goes to her room. Kieran walks her to her room. Well, Poppy stole herself a steak knife while she was at the table because she's Poppy. She likes to stab people. So, Poppy stole a steak knife. As soon as Kieran leaves, Poppy breaks out of her room. She takes off running, trying to escape, and runs for the woods. She takes no supplies. Now, in all fairness to Poppy, she thought about it. Hey, I need food. I need extra clothes. I need a cloak for warmth. I need, she grabs her cloak. I think she has one change of clothes. She has no food because she's afraid if she takes the time to go to the kitchens to get some food, that she will get busted and her escape attempt will be over with and she won't get another chance. Because that's the thing, you don't know when you're going to get another chance, right? So she just takes off in the woods. Kieran shows up in his wolf form because Kieran is a wolven. So they're kind of like the werewolves, but they're kind of like the wolves in Twilight or True Blood in that they can turn whenever they want to. It's not just on a full moon. So Kieran shows up in wolf form and she's like, look, we cool. I ain't got no beef with you. But if you try and take me back, I will fight you. I'm not going back. And Cass, of course, shows up right behind Kieran and says, if you want to fight somebody, you're going to fight me. So he tells her, we'll fight. I'll give you a sword and we'll fight. And if you win, I'll let you go. So he gives her a short sword and they are fighting. And while they're fighting, the freaking cravens show up. These are the zombie monsters that are made by the Ascended when they feed. So the cravens show up and they're fighting the craven. And Cass is kind of, giving her the business because he's like, how far do you think you would get with no food? And what would have happened if you'd ran into these craven by yourself? And, Poppy, the fight is kind of gone out of Poppy because she realizes she would have been craven food if she had succeeded in her escape attempt. So she goes back to the keep with him. So here's one of my favorite quotes, and it's from Hawk. And he says, I am Hawk and I am Castile. I'm not two separate people, no matter how badly you want to believe that. And he says that because, and you can understand why Poppy feels this way. Poppy's kind of like, who even are you? Because you acted this one way this whole entire time that you were pretending to be Hawk. And now you're acting, kind of a different way when you're Cass. So, who even are you? And that's, when he tells her that. And then here's another quote, one of my favorite quotes, and this is from Poppy. And she says, he was both the villain and the hero, the monster and the monster slayer. So, and that's true about Cass in this story. But it's also kind of, Jen had said in a live video that Cass was probably one of her favorite book characters because he's kind of everything all rolled into one. And so that's, I kind of love it because it's kind of like an Easter egg kind of nod to, Cass is all things, but so he's also all things like as a book character. So, okay. Anywho, Poppy, of course, is like, dude, no, I'm not marrying you. And Hawk kind of explains to her why it would benefit them both if they got married. And so he explains that, you know, if we were, the Ascended want you. They want you bad enough, you know, that they're coming after you. So we could use that to bargain. We could get my brother back. We could get your brother back. We could get more land for Atlantia because they're running out of land in Atlantia. And, you know, when everything's said and done, he says, if you want, I will grant you a divorce and your freedom and you can go wherever you want to. So she agrees. She agrees to stay with Cass and have this business arrangement of a marriage. Alistair, the guy that showed up that Cass was like, don't fight me in front of this guy, which makes you wonder, right? Because Cass is pretty bad, you know? Like, he's a scary dude. So if he's wary of Alistair, it kind of makes you wonder, right? And Kieran tells her that Alistair is the advisor. He's a Wolven, and he's the advisor to the king and queen, Cass's parents. So Alistair meets with her and offers to hide her. He says, look, you know, I want to make sure that you're not being held against your will and that you're not doing this against your will, which if he'd have talked to her before Cass did, she'd probably been like, yeah, get me out of here. But she realizes that if she goes with Alistair, yes, she'll be free and she'll be away from Cass, but she won't have her brother back. So she decides to, you know, stick with her arrangement with Cass. So while they're there at New Haven, the Ascended show up. Lord Cheney, which is one of the Ascended lords, and some knights. So, you know, normally the Ascended were guarded by humans, by mortals. But there are some Ascended that are royal knights. So he shows up with the royal knights. They're killing the people in the keep to try and find Poppy. Cass jumps into the fray and he's fighting. Poppy sees a knight go after a little boy. So she confronts the knight. She kills the knight. But then Lord Cheney shows up and she's like, if you let the little boy go, I will come with you. And so another knight comes up behind her and knocks her out. So she wakes up in the carriage and Lord Cheney is like, being a jerk. I mean, he's a jerk. And he's more than a jerk, but I'm PG, he a jerk. Okay, so Lord Cheney is like, you don't even know what you are, but apparently he knows, like he talks like he knows what she is. And so he tries to bite her. She fights him and he ends up biting her anyway. And she's in excruciating pain and she just goes crazy and starts stabbing him because she still had her steak knife. So she's stabbing him, fighting like a wildcat. He's fighting like a wildcat, biting her. Something inside of her snaps because her life is threatened by Lord Cheney. And Castile shows up and pulls Lord Cheney off of her. He gives her his blood to heal her. So if you're keeping track, this is the second time. And so I think Kieran discusses with Poppy, they're not supposed to give their blood to people. And like the more you do it, I guess something can happen, especially if it's with a mortal. You're not supposed to give mortals your blood if you're an Atlantean. I think because of what happened with the first king and him turning his mortal lover into an Ascended, and that's what started the whole War of the Two Kings in the first place. Anyway, so Cass gives her his blood, and she decides, she's like, you know what? I have these gifts. I'm going to go help take pain away from the people that were wounded in the attack on New Haven. So she does. She is giving care, you know, trying to take the pain away because of her gifts. She can take people's pain away. And some of them take it and some of them don't because they think that she's an empath, a soul eater, which is a bad thing. But she's not, and she tells them that she's not, but you know how people are. So they finally have a kissy poo at 39%. And actually, you can actually see I actually wrote it. Finally a kiss at 39% with 3 exclamations. I ship them even if Cass is a lie, you know what. So, anyway, Cass gives Poppy a gift, which is Lord Cheney in the dungeon of the keep. And she handles her business because she grown. And they leave New Haven. And they're heading towards Atlantia because, remember, they have to be married on Atlantean soil. So, here's another one of my favorite quotes, and it's from Poppy. she says, because they're riding along, of course, they're on the horse together, and Cass is basically saying, you know, I'll take whatever part of you you'll give me. And she doesn't say this out loud. This is an inner dialogue, but she says, I didn't offer Castile a piece of me as we rode forward, joining the others. There was no reason to, because what he didn't know was that he already held too many. She in love with Cass. So while they're traveling, and it takes a long time for her to admit that, which I think we can understand, right? Like, he did some dirty, shady stuff. For good reason, but dirty, shady stuff. So anyway, while they're traveling, they get attacked by the Dead Bones clan, which, y'all, it is these people who wear freaking skin suits and eat people. So it's like a combination of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Ed Gein and Jeffrey Dahmer and the clans people from Game of Thrones, because, and they're up in the trees, and so they're riding along, and freaking they knock Cass off the horse with a darn arrow, and everybody starts fighting. Poppy's fighting with the crossbow, the Wolven are fighting, Cass is fighting, so finally they kill enough of them that the rest of them run off. So they get back on the road, and they pass through the city of Pompeii, which was, I guess, the outermost city of Atlantia that bordered with Solus. And so when the War of the Two Kings happened or whatever, and some people kind of retreated to Pompeii, and they were living in Pompeii, and they were dissenters and Atlanteans, the Ascended attacked it, and they burned it to the ground, and they turned all the people there into cravens, and Cass and Kieran and the Atlantean army had to come kill everybody and bury them. So they make it through Pompeii to Spessa's End, which was a town that was also destroyed, but Cass and his people built it back. And so they're staying in Spessa's End for a while before they move on to further into Atlantia, I guess. Anyway, they're in the bed together because, I mean, she's been sharing the bedchamber with Cass this whole time. Because even though she's mad and can't stand him, he ain't about to let her sleep by herself. So they're in the bed. They wake up in the morning, and Cass's eyes, which she had been asking him, like, he had been acting a little funny the last couple of days, and she and Kieran both had asked him if he was okay, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm fine. Him not fine. I mean, he fine. He fine, but he not okay. There we go. That's, yeah, okay. That's what I was trying to find. Okay. So, I tickle myself. All right. So, they wake up in the morning, and Cass's eyes are all black like a Craven's, but not like a Craven's, because where their eyes are kind of like dead and there's nothing there because they're the zombies. His, she says, are lit like fire. And he attacks her, not in the hungry, ascended kind of way, but in another kind of a Hawk and Poppy kind of way. This where the smut starts. So, so she screams, and Kieran comes in, and then he goes to attack Kieran, and she has to use her gift on him to get him to, you know, back off. And when he comes back into himself and realizes what he did, he runs off. And she's actually worried about him. And, you know, it's like, is he going to be okay? And Kieran takes her to the bay to kind of distract her and give Cass some time. He's like, oh, you know, when he gets his mess together, he'll be back. It's fine. And he tells her while they're at the bay that he thinks that they're heartmates, which is, I love that word, by the way. I love that word. I love that word. Like Jen did, and she always does an amazing job, but these books are like over the top. Like this literally may be my favorite series of hers. I don't know, but it may be. Maybe one of my favorites. It's definitely one of my favorite series ever. It's not taking Recent's spot, but there's definitely competition for Recent. So, he's telling her that basically what happened with Cass is he hasn't been feeding because he, you know, is in love with Poppy, and feeding is very intimate. And so he wouldn't want to do that with anybody but Poppy. And so Poppy's like, you know, regardless of everything that has happened, Cass is a victim of the Ascended, just like I'm a victim of the Ascended, and he needs to feed. It's not safe for me if he doesn't. It's not safe for Kieran. It's not safe for other people. So I'm going to bite the bullet and let him feed. And he does. And Kieran has to be there to protect Poppy to make sure Cass doesn't go too far. And the feeding turns very intimate. And once Cass is good, Kieran steps out to let them do some hunt. So after that, he takes her to see the newly built parts of Spessa's End, where people are working and rebuilding houses and stuff. And there's this young Wolven that's running around, and he gets injured. And Poppy just goes to use her gift to take his pain away. And she ends up healing him, which is something new that she didn't have before, right? So that's the thing that we see in both of these books, is that Poppy continues to evolve and her gifts continue to evolve and change. So she starts glowing, and Cass is just like more in awe of her, more in love with her. Neither one of them will say it. Neither one of them will admit it. And this is another one of those where if they would just like sit down and talk to each other, that's like a theme in Jen's books. If these people would just sit down and talk to each other. But then you wouldn't have, you know, the tension. So, whatever. Okay, so here's another one of my favorite quotes. And this is from Poppy. And so this one is, I think it's kind of where she starts to realize, you know what I'm saying, how she feels. She doesn't say the L word. But I think she's starting to acknowledge that even with everything he's done, she still has feelings for him. She still cares about him. So here's the quote. What existed between Castile and I was neither right nor wrong. It was messy and complicated, and maybe I'd regret this later as I gave him more and more pieces of me, but I wanted him. So he takes her to that cave that he was telling her about that he used to go to with Kieran and his friend. Y'all see the faith. Okay, all right. His friend. And then he had bad memories of the cave. And so Poppy helps him replace bad memories with good memories in the cave. Page 339. Y'all, when I read page 339, I was at work. And I was just like, I don't think I'm supposed to read this at work. It was so good. Page 339. Okay. So they're in the dining hall, and Alistair drops a bomb that Castile was supposed to marry another. Now, nobody has told Poppy about this. Nobody. Cass hasn't. Kieran hasn't. Alistair hasn't. Nobody. Nobody's told him. So right there in the dining hall, he drops it in front of Poppy that Cass was supposed to marry somebody else. And Cass tells him in front of everybody else, but I never agreed to that. Like, yes, you wanted me to do that, and my father wanted me to do that, but I never agreed to that. But what girl would not be mad, right? Why didn't you tell me about that? So Poppy, of course, goes off because she's like, why am I just now hearing about this? Why haven't you told me about this? And so basically they just have it out in front of God and everybody in the freaking dining hall. Kieran escorts Poppy back to her room because she's good and mad, and you can understand why. She goes to open the door and realizes that it's unlocked. They're not locking her up anymore. And she has a breakdown because she's never, in Poppy's whole life, right, since she was a little girl, she's never been allowed to just leave a room if she wanted to just open a door. She's always been locked up. She was locked up by the Ascended to keep her the maiden. And then when Cass kidnapped her, he kept her locked up. So this is the first time ever in her life she's been able to open a door and walk out the door. And so she has this breakdown because she doesn't even know how to feel, you know. And it's, Jen's just amazing. So, and she's, you know, realizing things about herself. So that's where this next quote comes in. So this is a quote from Poppy. And she says, he had my whole heart. And he had from the moment he allowed me to protect myself, from the moment he stood beside me instead of in front of me. And so Cass comes into the room and they're talking. They're finally, you know, starting to get somewhere. And they get interrupted by a meal that the sky's on fire. So they go outside and they go on the roof and they see that the sky's on fire and they're waiting for one of the scouts to come back. And Delano, one of the wolves, does come back with news and he says the Ascended are coming and they're burning Pompeii again. So Hawk tells her this while they're up on the, you know, they were up there for a long time. So anyway, they're waiting for the Ascended to come, right? Obviously they're coming because they're burning Pompeii. They're on their way to Spessa's Inn. So anyway, so they're having heart-to-heart stuff. So here's my quote from Hawk. He says, "What I said that night still holds true. I'm not worthy of you. I knew that then. I know that still, but it hasn't stopped me from concocting a plan where I can have you, if only until this is over. It didn't stop me from wanting everything from you, from pretending that I could have everything, Poppy." And they finally have the conversation, the I care about you, you care about me conversation. But they're still, you know, worried about, well, what if this happens and then this, and we still have to deal with this and this and this. And Hawk says, this is another quote from Hawk, "Let's make a deal that we don't borrow tomorrow's problems today." And, you know, like that is some really on point advice because a lot of us are what if people. You know, I'm one of those. I have to tell myself all the time, like I literally have said serenity prayer to myself at least once a week. Probably more, but at least once a week. But, you know, we can't fix what's going to happen tomorrow. So let's just deal with today's problems today and we'll worry about tomorrow's problems tomorrow. Like, I like that. So Vonetta, which is Kieran's sister, is helping Poppy. She met her when she helped Beckett. And Vonetta is helping Poppy get ready for the wedding. They've decided they're going to go ahead, since the Ascended are on their way, they're going to go ahead and get married in Spessa's Inn because it is Atlantean soil. So the ceremony, I'm not going to tell you about the ceremony because you need to read the book. But the ceremony is it's very cool and it's very sweet. And the sky darkens, which is a sign that Nyctos, one of the gods, approves of the wedding. Okay? So they consummate things in the traditional way and the Atlantean way, which is sharing blood. And then they wake up in the middle of the night and the Ascended are there. And it's Duchess Tierman and the Ascended army. And they send the heads of the people from New Haven over in bags on the catapult. And Cass snaps and jumps off the wall and starts fighting the Ascended. Poppy is fighting from the battlements with the bow and arrow, but it just it's such a mess down there. She can't tell friend from foe, basically. So she jumps into the fray. And then the Ascended's reinforcements show up. So like her and Cass are screwed, right? Like they're barely going to make it out of here. And Cass is like, I'm going to get you out. I can't promise what's going to happen to me or anybody else, but I'm going to get you out. So they start fighting their way out. And all of a sudden the wolves show up. The wolves show up. The Atlanteans show up. They said they were called by Poppy. So Poppy kills Duchess Tierman, but Duchess Tierman tells her like some weird stuff. Like when she finds out she's married, she just starts laughing and she's like, well, if I'd known that, we could have avoided all this. We didn't even need to fight each other if I'd have known you were married because you're the queen's granddaughter. Yeah. So anyway, so she tells Cass, and Cass is like, you know, they lie. Like, you know, who even knows what the truth is with them? So they leave for Atlantia. And, you know, Atlantia is protected by a mist, right? That's supposed to keep people out, a magic mist. And so they make it through the mist into the Skotos Mountains. And they find a good place to camp, they think. And Poppy is sleeping between Cass and Kieran. And it's to keep her safe. she starts dreaming about the night of the Craven attack when her parents were killed. And she wakes up to Cass grabbing her onto the ground. She dreamed of a woman telling her to stop. And she said that there was a woman that stopped her from walking off the cliff, basically, to her death. And they have like a little earthquake, and Cass and Kieran are like, oh, that means one of the gods is going back to sleep. So one of the gods woke up to keep her from walking off a cliff in her sleep. So they finally make it to the Pillars of Atlantia, which is in Sion's Cove. And Alistair shows up, and he looks disappointed. Like he's upset that they married. And I literally wrote, he's shady. Because he is. Something's just not right. Like, for one thing, he's too nice. And then he's adamant about them not marrying each other. And so he shows up to meet them. And he's disappointed. He's mad that they're married. And come to find out, Cass's parents have come with him because they've heard about the attack in Spessa's End. So they've shown up to Sion's Cove. So everybody named Mama in Sion's Cove, okay? Alistair says he wants to speak with Cass privately about things that concern the kingdom. And Cass is like, whatever you have to say to me, you can say in front of my wife. But Poppy's like, you know, I don't want to cause drama, unnecessary drama, whatever. So when Beckett offers to take her to see Nyctos's chambers, which is the temple to Nyktos, she says, yeah, that'll be great. And, you know, they think this is, you know, it'll get me, Alistair can talk to Cass. I'll get to see the temple. So they go. And come to find out, the Nyctos's temple is also like the tomb of the ancients, where the ancients are buried. So she's out there talking to Beckett. All of a sudden, Beckett disappears. And there's a whole bunch of people that show up. And I'm not sure if they're Guardians or Atlanteans or what, because they're wearing white tunics. They have the gold bands that the Guardians wear. Anyway, it's a whole bunch of people show up. And they're basically like, we're not going to let you come in here and take our kingdom, Soul Eater. And she's like, I'm not a Soul Eater. I'm not an empath. Like, you know, I don't know where you got that from, but that's not the truth. And they start throwing rocks at her to stone her, to incapacitate her, so they can get close enough to kill her. Yeah, this whole slew of people then showed up trying to kill Poppy. So they try to kill her, and all of a sudden, like, the sky goes really dark. It starts thundering and lightning. It starts raining blood. And Poppy takes all that hatred and nastiness and negative energy and throws it back at them, because something in her just snaps. And it kills them. It kills them all. And you know what? I ain't even mad. Be little Daenerys. Be little Targaryen, kill them all, Poppy, because they was being nasty. They was being nasty, Poppy. So she kills them all. And where her blood fell, outside the temple while they were stoning her, a blood tree pops up, which also happened in New Haven, where she was fighting the knights and Lord Chaney. Where her blood fell, a blood tree popped up. And the wolves show up, and they're circling her, but I don't think the book doesn't say, this is just my theory. The wolves have been called by her at least 2 or 3 times without her actually saying anything. When she's in distress, they say that she called them, and she doesn't say anything. So this is some sort of spiritual, emotional connection that she has with the wolves, which Cass has said that some gods had, and some ancients had, I think, deities, whatever. Anyway, so you know, all the wolves said that they get a little shock from her whenever they touch her. So I think that this is a bond, some sort of something between her and the wolves. So I don't think they're circling her to attack her. But anyway, the wolves show up, then Cass shows up, and he's got his swords drawn. And then the Atlanteans show up, and his parents, the king and queen. The king and queen show up where all these people just tried to kill Poppy, and Poppy just killed them instead. And and Poppy is glowing like a glowworm. Okay. So his mother asks Cass, what have you brought home? Which is weird, right? And Alistair says to the queen, it's not too late. And she says, yes, it is. And takes her bone, it's a crown made of bones, takes it off of her head and sets it on the floor of the temple near Nyctos's feet. And when she does, all the torches in the temple light up and the crown catches on fire and crumbles to ash and leaves a gilded crown in its place. And she tells everybody, now this is a quote from the mama, from Cass's mama, Poppy's mother-in-law. Lower your swords and bow before the last descendant of the most ancient ones. She who carries the blood of the king of the gods within her, bow before your new queen. Yeah. I ain't see that one coming. I did not. Like, I had no clue. Because this whole time, Cass has been calling her princess. Because he intended ever since he started having feelings for her, to marry her and make her a princess. Because he's the prince. And she already couldn't reconcile being a princess, much less a queen. And so now, because of who and what she is, and we still don't know what she is. So, Duchess Tierman has said, right, that Poppy's grandmother is the queen in Solus. And that the queen is not an ascendant. Or, well, she doesn't say that. She says whoever said the queen was an ascendant. So, we don't know if the queen is a goddess, an ancient, what. But apparently, she's Poppy's grandmother. Now, is she the one who carries the blood of the king of the gods? Or was it her father? Like, is she Atlantean and an ancient? I don't know. But she ain't human. We know that much. So that's the cliffhanger. That's where the book ends off. But as a bonus, if you get the Kindle version at the end, I don't know if it's in the print version. While we're here, let me look. So in the Kindle version, at the end, you get a bonus scene of the Red Pearl from Hawk's point of view. It's not in the print version. Okay. On the Kindle version, there's a link to a page to get the bonus scene of the Red Pearl. But lucky for you, I got the notes right here. So, Hawk and Jericho and Kieran and Commander Jensen are at the Red Pearl in Hawk's room discussing killing a guard and taking Poppy. Jensen is working with Hawk because the Ascended killed both of his children. So if you remember, Commander Jensen was the commander of the Guards of the Rise in Macedonia. And he's the one that helped Hawk get to Poppy. So Jensen and Hawk both tell Jericho not to harm the maiden when he kills her guard, because they know Jericho's little... So, which we all know, Jericho did try to hurt the maiden, and she stabbed him, because Poppy stabs people. And so everybody else leaves, and Hawk is sitting in front of the fireplace, drinking and thinking, when he hears the doorknob turn. And Hawk, with his super fast reflexes, hides in the shadows when he hears the doorknob turn. And he knows it's not Britta, because remember, Poppy was wearing Britta's cloak. He knows it's not Britta because she doesn't smell like Britta, but he doesn't know who it is. So he comes up behind her and grabs her around the waist. And then, you know, we all remember what happened. They went to the bed and were kissing and talking and having some conversations. And Hawk, you know, knows that he's like, I could just take her right now. You know, I've come up with this elaborate plan, been working on it for years to take this girl, and here she is right here underneath me, and I could just take her. But he's intrigued. See what I did there? He's intrigued by her, and so he wants to get to know her. He wants to get to know her, and he wants to get close to her, and so he decides he's not going to take her, that instead he's going to become one of the royal guards. And then we all know what happened after that. So thanks, you guys. I hope you enjoy. If you have not read it, read it, because it's super good. All right, thanks, you guys. Till next time.